What's up, guys? We are on part 76 of the CD collection. First up, I am recording this a little bit earlier, if you can believe that or not, earlier than usual. I have some important stuff I have to take care of today, so I needed to go on and just get up earlier and knock this out. I have to speak a little bit lower. I know I was having the audio issues in the last video, so if you have to turn this one up a little bit, I apologize for that, but there's not much I can do about it today. Just going to jump right into this. We're going to wrap up the H's and jump right into the I's. First up, we have some grindcore out of Italy. This is Hyena Rabid with Homo Hominis Hyena. A pretty decent slab of grindcore. I mean, they're not reinventing the wheel or anything with this. You're not going to be just astronomically blown away, but it is a pretty solid release. Does get very abrasive at times, as a lot of grind albums tend to do. But I do find myself enjoying this one. It's the only album that this band has put out. It came out in 2013 on Horror, Pain, Gore, Death. According to Metal Archives, the status of this band is unknown, so I don't know if they're ever going to release any more material or not, but this one album that they have out from 2013 is pretty solid. Next up, we have a black metal project from Jory from Inephrons. This is a bit more... I guess a bit darker as far as subject matters and soundscapes go. This is Hyalith with As If Sunlight Could Warm the Deceased. I really like this album. I would like to see Jory explore this project a little bit more. This came out in 2019, and it is the only release that he's released under the Hyalith moniker. I dig it. I mean, it gets very depressive at times. Very dark subject matters going on, but it's still beautiful in its own way. So killer stuff there. It is actually signed on the inside by Jory. I really enjoy everything he's a part of. I mean, Inephrons is one of those bands that just tugs at my heartstrings, and I found something that he's in here that can just break my heart as well. Next up, we have a band out of China. This is Blood with Chaos from World Orgasm. This is some brutal death metal, and I will say that the production on this album is phenomenal. This was released, this has been out for a minute. I don't see the date on this. I know it's been out for a little while. It was released on Severed Records. Unfortunately, I don't see a date on this. It may be around the 2012-2013 mark that this came out. Killer stuff. I mean, the production on this is just top notch. A lot of times with brutal death metal, you're either going to have overbearing vocals, drums will be buried in the mix, you hardly hear them. It's hard to find that balance, and they definitely were able to find the balance on this album. The vocals are a little restrained. They're not just too over the top. They do get a little froggy at times, but overall, I found this to be a super impressive brutal death metal release. Generally, I don't own two variants of the same album. Occasionally, we will run across albums that I've made an exception, or they just happen to be in the collection that way. And this is one that I made an exception for. This was the very first album that I purchased from Blackline Records. This is Hyperion with Seraphical Euphony. Hyperion is a melodic black metal, melodic kind of, I guess more of a melodic black and death metal band. Out of Sweden, obviously, well, not obviously, but early on, Oliver was releasing a ton of Swedish bands. He still releases quite a few bands from Sweden under the Blackline banner, but back then, the majority of the acts that he was signing and releasing material for were from Sweden. I really love this album. It is phenomenal. I know this one took off. This was probably one of the earliest big successes that he had as a label owner. This is the first press that was on a CDR, like a pro CDR disc. It's funny. It's great, but it's funny to see how far that label has come since back in 2016 when that one came out. And then I don't know how many pressings they've done of this album, but I do have a later press. I know that the earlier presses were selling out. There's not a whole lot of variants that you can tell just looking at it. The original has a bit of a greener look to the front cover art, but there we go. This is the second or third or whatever. This is a later press on this. This actually has a CD as opposed to CDR. The artwork looks very similar on the disc itself, but you actually have an inlay artwork on the later press as well, as opposed the other one just had the white back or white blank uh, spacer there behind the black jewel case insert, and then the back looks almost identical. But I usually find myself, if I'm going to play one, I play the newer copy. I like to keep that CDR and that original one just for nostalgia's sake on the shelf, because as you guys know, I love Black Line Records and I love what Oliver does over there. So it's pretty nice for me to look back and be like, hey, that was the very first Black Line Records release that I ever owned. Next up, we have another band under the same name. This is a band also called Hyperion. This is a band out of the Ukraine. This is some death metal, kind of melodic death metal, but it's pretty aggressive melodic death metal. It's pretty heavy for a band to be under that mellow death kind of label. This is the only album that this this band Hyperion put out. This one is entitled Through Centuries. This was released on Deathgasm Records. I think I got this actually in one of those mystery boxes, those Deathgasm grab bag mystery box deals, if I remember correctly. It says 2005, so it's been out for quite some time. I think it's the only album that this band ever put out. So, but pretty good stuff there. Next up, we have a band. I'm not sure where this band is from. It's gonna be hard for me to even describe this. It's kind of a classical music, neoclassical mixed with folk music. There's some like post rock elements going on this. This is Hyperboreae. Okay, let me try that again. Hyperboreae with Terre Incognite. Yeah, butchered that all to pieces. There's the melodies that this project is able to create on this release are just amazing. Very good background music. It's something that you can put on. Very good mood music. I like it quite a bit. There's a one track that has I guess like a session female vocalist that comes in and does some singing on this that is amazing as well. It's 13 tracks, but it's a killer listen. I do like that. Next up, a band that I don't own as much material from that I would like. This is Hypocrisy. I don't even own the album that this EP was leading up to, but this is the Maximum Abducted EP. It doesn't have a front artwork, and it has this kind of dismembered chicken shaped disc. I'll take the actual disc out so you can see it. That's one of those, like it would say the little disclaimer that you can't listen to that in a car radio and all that type stuff because it's a shaped disc. There's the inside. Pretty killer stuff here from Hypocrisy. I'm missing quite a bit of their material, as we'll see. I'd like to get my hands on that Abducted album because that's one of their strongest releases. Then we have the Final Chapter. This is kind of like a benchmark release for Hypocrisy. You can kind of see the direction that they're going on this one, or kind of leaning to. It was kind of leading the way for the Catch-22 stinker that came next, that everybody just, I think it came after this one, that just everyone hated. But the Final Chapter, it's kind of fitting because this was like a transition album. So the Final Chapter is kind of like the early Hypocrisy sound, where this is them kind of moving into this more accessible, more melodic kind of sound that turned a lot of people off, especially with the Catch-22 album. Then we have The Arrival. This is like, when I think of Hypocrisy, this is the album cover. For some reason, I just think of this one. It always comes to mind. This came out in 2004. A lot of people looked at this as kind of a return to form after Catch-22, which we'll talk about in a minute. But good album there, The Arrival. Then I have Virus. I hate this digipack thing that this in. It's just collapsed. Let me show the front. And like the album itself is decent, but I hate this packaging so much. Like, it's just the DVD. That's the DVD there, and it's just rolling around in there. The CD part's not any better, and they have the liner note just kind of stuck in there. So I don't know if it's missing a tray. I bought this used, so I don't know if it's just missing or it's a damaged digipack, but just the packaging on that kind of took away from me, took away from my enjoyment of the album, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And then we have the Catch-22 version 2.0.08. This was the remastered reissue of Catch-22. Catch-22 definitely needed a remaster. The production value was one of the biggest hindrances to that original, the original release of this. It helps it a little bit. I mean, it definitely sounds better than the original to me. I don't say that often. A lot of times I feel like the reissues and remasters, well, reissues are fine, but the remasters sometimes are unneeded, unwarranted, or especially like if a band does a re-recording, it's a lot of times that's just a cash grab and that type stuff, and I'm not a big fan. But I feel like this one sounds much better than the original Catch-22. I would have never sought this out and purchased it on its own, even this version. This came in back when Nuclear Blast Records was doing their grab bags. I believe I got this in one of those, and I just hung on to it since then. So, and then we have one that was a bit of a surprise. It's not a band that I've just followed and kept up with so much, but I heard some praise for this release, and I went and listened to it, and I was kind of blown away by it. So I had to get my hands on a copy. This is Worship from Hypocrisy. I absolutely love this release. I've probably spent, even though this came out in 2021. I've probably spent as much time with this one as I have, like, say, The Arrival, if not even more. That I like this one that much. So, killer stuff. It kind of caught me off guard with how good it was. It's just one of those bands for me. Hypocrisy is just one of those bands that's always kind of been there. I haven't really just dug too deep in there in their discography. I do own quite a bit. I'm slowly chipping away at it and spending some time with it. But Worship was a very, very, very killer album. And then the last of the HCDs, we have Hypothermia, with a lot of people look at as probably their worst release, and I actually like this one. I believe it's entitled Svartkunst. It's the last one that they've put out. This one, they're head first into post rock. They've kind of abandoned the black metal sound altogether on this. That did turn a lot of people off, and I understand that they do that. I mean, I understand that there are people that aren't going to be happy. I mean, anytime a band goes through a progression like that, you're going to have people that are happy and people that are upset. I just like this one. I hadn't sought out any of their earlier material, so I didn't have anything to be disappointed by. I got this. I believe I got this in either a mystery box or a bundle deal or something. I can't remember. So when I got it, I didn't really have any kind of expectation for it anyway. And I listened to it, and even though it's like post-rock and atmospheric type stuff, it's still very dark sounding and kind of ominous, and I do enjoy that. Let me make a little space, and we will start off in the I section. First up, speaking of kind of ambient post-rock type music, we have some droney ambient post-rock. I forget where this band is out of, but there are, according to Discogs, this band has 123 releases, so kind of take that for what it's worth. The disc itself on this is just on a silver disc CDR, so I'm not even going to take it out of the plastic. This is I Am Esper with When the Sun Sets Over the Wilderness and the Trees Rattle in the Growling Winds. I blind bought this from Redstream Records many years ago. This has been out for quite some time. It's not bad. Very atmospheric type stuff. It does get droney, very ambient stuff. But I was just drawn in by that artwork. At the time, I was looking for anything that kind of looked like atmospheric black metal. That was about the time that I really got into Elderwind and that type of stuff, and I was looking for anything that looked somewhat reminiscent on the cover, and I was blind buying stuff, some for better and some for worse, but this is one that I got in that little time period. Next up, a band that I'm just going to call an extreme metal band. I mean, they've got so many progressive type elements going on between they fuse in like metalcore, blackened death metal, progressive black metal. There's jazz elements going on in their material. Not so much in the earlier stuff. This is I Am the Trireme with their EP entitled Unholy. This one leans heavier into the metalcore style. The progression of this band, I'm loving the progression of this band. I'm loving the way that they've gone forward with this. I was taken aback. I didn't really like this one when I first heard it because when I got it, I was expecting some black metal. I mean, I blind bought it. It looked like even the imagery and stuff on the back, it looked like it was just going to be some type of either symphonic black metal, something along those lines. And it definitely wasn't. I mean, it has some blackened elements going on, no doubt, but it just wasn't what I expected. It took me a little while to get into that one. Then we have the first full length entitled Gnosis, Never Follow the Light. This was released on Horror, Pain, Gore, Death Records. This one's pretty good. Out of the 3 full lengths, it's probably my least favorite, but sometimes that's a good thing. Like to start off and keep getting better with every record, and this is a band that I feel like has definitely done that. Then we have their second album. This one, I believe the next 2 were both released on Black Line Records. This is I Am the Trireme with Nomenclature. This, like the progressiveness on this one, the jazziness on this one definitely takes it up a notch. Very extreme sounding. It sounds like a much larger album than that debut. Could just be the production values have improved, the mixing and mastering maybe improved, but the step forward in progressiveness, just them trying out new ideas and stuff is definitely present on this album. And then my favorite release from them, this came out last year. This one is entitled Magnum Opus. If I went back and redid my end of the year list, I might have to go on and squeeze this one on there. That's why those end of the year lists really just don't mean a whole lot, because it's just pretty much my mood at that general time period is what the albums are getting put in. But this is a killer release. This is just like a larger than life feeling release. It's got some saxophone parts that they're able to morph into this, especially when I was speaking like the jazzy stuff. I call this sax metal sometimes, but it's a killer release. I like this one. If you haven't heard anything from this band, this would be the one that I would definitely listen to, because it is my favorite. I don't know if I showed that long enough. Next up, some deathcore. This is I Declare War with We Are Violent People by Nature. I had some other I Declare War releases in the collection at one point. I sold all of those. I tried to sell this one and nobody bought it. So that'll tell you pretty much, that'll sum up on this album. I feel like this is the weakest I Declare War album. I mean, it just sounds very generic to me. There's just something off on this album. It's a band that I kind of moved on from anyway, but that one's still in the collection because nobody wanted to buy that one when I was selling the material. Next up, we have some black metal. First up, we have I Shall Become with Wanderings. This is the debut full length. This is when I Shall Become had a much more traditional black metal sound going on. Still has the security strip on the top. Generally, I come through these and tear those off and that stuff, but I didn't have as much time to prep today because I have some stuff going on. But there we go. Pretty good. I like this. I mean, it's a solid debut. I mean, they're not reinventing any type of black metal wheel here, but it is a good listen. So I mean, if you got a solid debut, like a good solid foundation that you're building your band on, then that's definitely a good starting point. Next up, we have I Shall Become with Getting Old. I can't really see. The Pendle Witch Trials. This was the album, I think this was maybe their third or fourth. And this is when they started really kind of enveloping those atmospherics. They haven't gone like into the full symphonic black metal sound yet, but they had the they were starting to put those kind of fuzzy atmospherics in this one. A lot of people didn't like this album. I like it. I like that kind of fuzzy. I mean that when atmospheric black metal doesn't all have to be like the nature driven themed kind of harmonious black metal. You can have fuzzy, dark atmospherics going on in the music as well. And this is a band that does that, and they did that on this album. This is one that a lot of people kind of look over in their discography, but I do like that one. But my absolute favorite is kind of a theme with bands in this video, because this is their newest their newest album. Came out in 2010. Wow, this one's been out for a minute. I thought it came out in 2019. This is Poison, and I love this one. This is leaps and bounds my favorite I Shall Become release. Definitely into the atmospheric kind of symphonic sound on this one, but I dig it. It's definitely my favorite release from this band. Next up, we have some metalcore. This is early. It's like 2005, 2006 metalcore. It's got deathcore. It's like metalcore fused with melodeath. So I mean, it is a very heavy style of metalcore. So it definitely has that going for it. This is I Suffer Incorporated with their second album entitled Chronicles of Lost Purity. I believe this band is out of Italy as well. I just burped. I'm sorry. This label was out of Greece. So, but for some reason I'm wanting to say this band's out of Italy. Doesn't really matter, but that's just where my mind is telling me that they're from. Pretty good. It definitely has that throwback sound of metalcore back when metalcore was a bit more aggressive, and I can definitely appreciate that. So pretty decent stuff there from I Suffer Incorporated. The next two are both, this is the last two that I'll show in this video, are both from the same band. I was actually turned on to this band by Jake from the Upside Down Church channel. He sent me this in a VCLT. This was a band that I'd never heard of prior, and this is absolutely phenomenal. I'm probably going to butcher the band name, Iapetus with The Long Road Home. This is their debut full length, and this one's pretty stellar. They are kind of they're death metal. They're able to fuse like tech death in with mellow death, and even I don't want to just come out and say metalcore sound on this, but there is like a bit of that, maybe just in the melodies. But I really like this band. I was blown away by this. This was much better than I anticipated when I listened to it, and they're the best. I mean, this one blew me away. This is Iapetus with The Body Cosmic. This is just a phenomenal release. This is just over the top. Will absolutely captivate you from start to finish. And I just first listened to this and I was hooked. So if you haven't heard of Iapetus, definitely jump in on this and give these guys a listen, especially if you're into tech death. It incorporates, I guess it's more of like a prog death, because they incorporate so many different styles of death metal into their soundscapes. But it's a concept album, but it's done absolutely perfectly, and it's just almost a flawless release. So definitely still thankful that Jake turned me on to these guys and sent me these releases. But that's all for the I section. We will hopefully be back next week. At some point I may take a little break from the channel and social media again. It's getting about that time. Just I'm not getting into just too personal stuff, but that it's kind of feeling maybe a little needed, but we'll just kind of see where we go from here. But hopefully, at least if nothing else, I will be back next week and we will be on part 77. Hope you guys have a great week. Stay classy, and I'll see you guys soon.